Present.
Caroline Battles,
Present.
Jerry Bowles, Jerry Bowles, John Bowman,
Present.
John Gall, Mary Grott, Mary Grott, Elliot Henry, Elliot Henry, Quintinus Henry, Quintinus Henry,
I see him there, I just don't hear him.
I see his name, but he's not responding. We can come back. Jeff Mazur,
Present.
Lee Metcalf,
Here.
Lydia Mitchell,
Present.
Wynn Mizell,
Present.
Mary Moriarty,
Good morning.
Vanessa Parker Lewis,
Present.
Reginald Scott,
Present.
Quintius Henry, I don't see a speaker for him, so he may not be able to say anything. We have quorum.
Can he put it in the chat?
Yes, he can. I don't see anything in chat, but we do have quorum.
Well, great. Seeing we have quorum, I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'd like to remind everyone that we are recording this session this morning. So good morning. I believe you were all sent the agenda. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Those were sent out, and I'm wondering if you have questions. If there are no questions, if we can have a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes for the June 20th, 2023 meeting. That would be in order.
So moved. This is Jeff Mazur.
Second, John Bowman.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Give that a second. Okay, thank you. Seeing none. The next order of business is a message from the Director of Human Services. Mr. Director, have you got something you'd like to say? Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, good morning. Just quickly, your meeting to move us through today, but I wanted to bring from the county executive and all of us at DHS to personally thank the board for having St. Louis County Job Center fully certified. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Yes, I would like to just second those remarks. I'd like to thank everyone for getting on this morning for this quick meeting. It's important approvals, and I really would just like to hand over the next order of business, of old business, to Greg Laposa to kind of walk us through why we're here and what votes we need to do this morning.
To receive the funding allocations that more or less authorizes us to use essentially with the state of Missouri. So both of these are required agenda items every year. Unfortunately, a lot of times they come after the
It's just,
Greg, you're freezing up. I can't hear you.
yeah, Greg, you're cutting out.
Mr. Chairman, I just spoke with Greg. He's going to try to call in. His system is sort of offline now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Much better.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I apologize. You're not going to be able to see me today. I'm not sure what's going on with my computer in my office, but we'll address that afterwards. But if you can hear me, I'll go ahead and proceed with my comments about the items that we're voting on today. So what I was saying before we had some of that disruption is thank you again for making time this morning. We know it's early, and we promise we won't keep you too long. There's really only a few votes that we're taking this morning, and essentially both of the major votes that we're taking are items that we typically have every year before the board. And so one of them is receiving our formula fund allocations. This is determined every year by a formula calculation based on our area of concentrated unemployment and our population size, and the state awards us funds from the Department of Labor based on that formula. So this is more or less approving, the first item is to really receive and approve the funds for operating our WIOA programs for the next program year, PY23. Once we receive the funds, we'll take a vote at the next meeting in August on the budgets for those funds. But you're essentially, in that vote today, you would be authorizing us to receive the funds and be able to start moving through the request for legislation process to write contracts using those funds with our new vendors. And then secondly, the other item is our annual agreement, which is typically the a very standard vote that we take. It's just to simply say that we agree to work with the state of Missouri to administer WIOA programs. So if you've opened that link, you've been able to read it. It's essentially a contract between the state of Missouri and St. Louis County. Both of these items are, again, every year we have these same items. They're typical items. There's not much in the way of substance that's changed in the annual agreement this year. In the formula fund allocation, we actually have seen an increase in funds for both the WIOA adult program, which is almost $1.4 million, and the youth program, the WIOA youth program, is around $1.4 million. And there was a slight decrease in the WIOA dislocated worker funding allocation, but that's, again, is based on that formula calculation. So based on the number of based on essentially the need for dislocated workers, and that's viewed through the lens of unemployment rate overall too for the state of Missouri. So we can talk about each one of those if we have questions, but otherwise I think those are the two major items. We're also going to vote on the meeting calendar. We still haven't approved the meeting calendar for the remainder of the year, so we'll take that vote as well. But this should be a pretty quick meeting unless there's any questions about either the formula funds or the annual agreement or the meeting calendar right now that I can address in advance, and then we can go through each individual item. So any general questions from the board? Okay, well, with that then, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to you to obtain a motion for the WIOA Formula Fund allocations and begin with that vote first.
Okay, so we need a motion. Let me try to phrase this properly. We need a motion of the board to receive the state WIOA Formula Fund allocation. That's basically it, correct? Because then we receive it, and then
Yes.
that'll go to the county council and get the ordinance number and receive the funds, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So
Jason,
could someone,
Good question.
yes,
So, is there any reason why would we ever reject this? Is it a function of whether or not we think it's not enough or it's too much? I mean, Greg, do you have some comment one way or the other about any deference we would have around accepting this?
That's a great question, Lee. No, there's not typically a reason, I don't think, why we wouldn't accept it. I would say when we get to the August meeting and you all look at the budgets, you know, that would be where we're using this money to create budgets, and you might have certain views on, you know, where money should be allocated, for instance. But I would say we're basically agreeing to operate programs. If we don't vote to accept this money, then we couldn't operate WIOA programs in our region. So this is just a vote that we have always customarily had the board take a vote on. I'm not sure that all boards in the state of Missouri always take a vote to receive these funds, but we always give the board the opportunity to vote on this to receive these funds. But I think that it's a good, I mean, you're asking a good question, Lee. There's no reason that I would see that you would object to, the board would object to receiving these funds, again, because otherwise the board can't operate programs in St. Louis County.
Oh, thank you. The only corollary I would have then is, when in the cycle do you ask for, or does somebody tell you, here's how much money you're going to get? And if we have more, if we have an argument to be made that we could have spent more, and I don't know that that's the fact, but let's just say it is. We do at some point an assessment of the need of our area, and let's assume that we came up with more than 1.4 million for one or more or both of those programs. I'd like to talk at some time later, where in the process do we get our finger in the pie with those at the state level that are deciding how to split it up and hand out X amount to each one of the regions?
So typically we receive the notification from the state in June. I think the issuance, let me see, the issuance was released on June 9th. So that's technically, the issuance is technically the document that notifies us of what our allocations are. So that's linked in your meeting. So you know, I would say that the state would probably say that these allocations are decided based on a formula. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle room to say, can we get more money or should we have less money? I think typically the board or the state board would expect that as we go throughout the program year and we're administering the funds, we might see that we need extra money or we might need less money where we could reallocate it to the state if we decide that that's a good call. We haven't typically done that, and we've normally spent our money every year. But there is an opportunity for us to engage with the state in dialogue as we're monitoring our spending throughout the program year. So I would say at every board meeting, August and November, and then next year, you know, February and May, we should be monitoring and providing an update on our expenditures, and that would be a good time to engage in conversation with the state. But they're going to likely tell us that these numbers are not necessarily what the state has decided the county deserves or anything like that, or even based on past expenditures. It's based on a formula calculation that's developed, I think, by the state in collaboration with the Department of Labor. And it's really based on, again, population size and areas of concentrated unemployment. So once that data is pulled by Merrick and run through a calculator, it spits out the different allocations per region. But I do think it's important to monitor the spending, and to the extent that we could engage the state and request in advance additional funds if we have a big project, for instance, that the board wants to focus on, those are conversations that we can have throughout a program year and make sure that we, gear up for the next time we get to June to see if there's any discretionary funding that could be awarded in addition to whatever the formula allocations are. Did I answer your question, Lee? I just want to make sure I answered your question.
Absolutely you did. And so let's just table it at the moment. We're going to move forward and get this vote done, but I just think that's a board asterisk that talks to, how we're lining up need, whatever. I've confronted formulas in a lot of other venues in my life. And if we have to confront this one, I think we should, if we see the need that outstrips the supply. So anyway, good. Thank you. We'll cover that later. So
Yeah, I move that we vote on the issue of accepting the funding formula as presented by the state of Missouri.
I second
Second.
the funds. Lee Metcalf.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Mavis, would you please roll call?
Yes. Brad Ackman. Jason Archer.
Yes.
Caroline Battles.
Abstain.
Jerry Bowles. John Bowman.
Yes.
John Gall.
Yes.
Mary Grott. Elliot Henry. Quintius Henry.
Yes.
Jeff Mazur.
Yes.
Lee Metcalf.
Yes.
Lydia Mitchell.
Yes.
Gwen Mizell.
Yes.
Mary Moriarty.
Abstain.
Vanessa Parker Lewis.
Yes.
Reginald Scott.
Yes.
We have 10 yes and 2 abstain. Vote carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the PY23 annual agreement. Now, Greg, before we ask for the motion, this is the required agreement that all WIBs sign with the state of Missouri. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And in the agreement, it basically specifies that we're going to follow all WIOA and state, requirements, regulatory requirements in the administration of our programs. It notes that, we'll have to meet certain negotiated measures for credential attainment, median earnings, employment, measurable skills gains. It specifies, essentially mostly the compliance policies that we have to follow, and a lot of it's taken from the federal law and then interpreted and put into this agreement. But it is essentially the agreement that essentially says that we're in contract with the state of Missouri to administer the funds that you all just approved accepting. And so we need to have this agreement in place with the state in order to execute our programs as well. And we get this annual agreement every year. That's why it's called an annual agreement, that more or less just specifies, again, those stipulations for how we administer the funds that we receive and that we, again, just voted on to approve.
Before I call for a motion, does anyone have any questions for Greg? Seeing none or hearing none, could someone make a motion that we engage in the PY23 annual agreement with the state of Missouri?
Mr. Chairman, this is John Galt. So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Gwen. For a second, we got a motion and a second. Mavis, would you please take the roll?
Yes. Brad Ackman. Jason Archer.
Yes.
Caroline Battles.
Abstain.
Jerry Bowles. John Bowman,
Yes.
John Gall,
Yes.
Mary Grott, Elliot Henry, Quintius Henry,
Yes.
Jeff Mazur,
Yes.
Lee Metcalf,
Yes.
Lydia Mitchell,
Yes.
Gwen Mizell,
Yes.
Mary Moriarty,
Abstain.
Vanessa Parker Lewis,
Yes.
Reginald Scott,
Yes.
I have 10 yes, and 2 abstain. The motion carries.
Thank you. The next item is the approval of the calendar. Greg, do you want to walk us through that real quick?
Yeah, this is a calendar that we typically approve every year, but in the last couple meetings that we've had, we've never had a quorum to be able to vote officially on this. But this is just, presenting the next 2 dates for the remainder of the year, which is August 25th, 2023, November 17th, 2023, and then we have some executive committee meetings as well and some youth council meetings. So again, typically we present this in November. We didn't get a chance to do that in November, and then we didn't meet again until June and had issues with quorum when it came to voting to formally approve this. But this is just making sure that we do our due diligence and approve the calendar for the remainder of the year.
Do we have any questions? Motion to
Move
approve
that
the
we-
calendar with
I'm sorry, go ahead.
John Bowman. Motion,
Yes.
thank you. Second?
Second.
I believe we got a second. Was that Mary?
That was Vanessa Parker Lewis.
Thanks. Thank you, Vanessa. Okay, we got a motion and a second. Does this require a roll call for a calendar approval?
It does not.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? All those that wish to abstain? Okay, seeing none. Great, calendar's passed. Greg, I think there's one more item on here, and that is the Job Center recertification. I don't know if you want to tell everyone about that real quick and our board approval.
Yes. So I will just add to Director Hayes and Mr. Chair's comments earlier about the great news that we did receive, which is that our job center at Northwest Crossings has been certified. And so you might be wondering, what does that mean? It's been a little while since we've talked about certifications. The last couple of meetings, we talked about a review team that was assembled to review the job center and make sure that we're in compliance with all expected regulations, policies, standards. And the review team is more or less acting on behalf of the board, but it is ultimately looking at the board's operations too and how it administers programs through the job center. And so every few years we have to have our job center certified. And to be certified means that more or less we're a recognized and functional job center in the state of Missouri. If we were not to be certified, it would mean that we would be given some time to get into compliance. They would give us 30 to 60 days, I think, to get our job center in compliance with local policies. But we don't have to worry about that because the review team recommended certification and the state agreed. And the state said, based on the review that was completed, that we met all criteria to be in compliance with federal guidelines and state expectations, policy expectations for our job center. Want to thank Jason Archer for being a part of that review team. We also had representatives from vocational rehabilitation, one of our partners, and that was Lisa Barber. We also had one of our co-located partners, Melanie Chandler, representing the Missouri Work Assistance Program and Better Family Life. And then we had a representative from the state of Missouri, and that was Valerie Moore, who is a regional manager who oversees our state employees who operate within our job center. And so that group, you know, had to conduct staff interviews. They had to go through, take a tour of the job center to check that we had, you know, the posters that we needed to have posted, to make sure that we had the assistive technology for individuals who might need that equipment. They were looking at, again, whether or not we had the relevant notices posted and whether or not we offered multiple languages for those posters. So really it was about seeing if our job center is as inclusive as it needs to be, whether or not it meets all the standards that are expected by equal opportunity provisions, as well as the general regulations that apply to a job center, and that we have all services that could be offered to the community through our job center. So that was a significant amount of work on the behalf of the review team, who in addition to their day job, devoted time to conduct the review, to interview staff, and ultimately to make a recommendation to the state. And again, the state agreed with the recommendation, and so we are certified officially until June 30th, 2026. So that we won't have to worry about this for a little bit, but just wanted to make sure that I kind of explained a little bit more about what it means to be certified, but appreciate Director Hayes' remarks and our board chair's remarks on this, and just wanted to make sure that you all were notified of that successful achievement. And then we also, we didn't update the board on this, but we also recently received our notification of board recertification, which means that this board here, the St. Louis County Workforce Development Board, of which you all are a part, meets all criteria and standards based on state and federal law too, as it relates to composition of members. We have to, if you might recall that we have to have 51% of our members represent business. We have to have at least 20% of our board represent labor and workforce. And then we have certain required partners like vocational rehabilitation and AEL that are part of our board, that if we didn't have those members in place, we wouldn't be certified until we did, essentially. So currently our board is certified. We did submit names of 5 individuals who will be joining our board and replacing, filling some vacancies that have occurred in the last year. And so we'll be excited to hopefully introduce them to you at the August meeting. They're going through the process now of being appointed officially by the county. They've received their letters now that the state has taken and accepted their nomination. But we'll be sharing those names with you and introducing them again, hopefully at the next August meeting, assuming that all of them can take their oath of office and everything and be officially appointed by that time. And we think that'll happen. But that's another bit of good news too, to let you all know that we're in compliance on that side as well. So that's all I have. I added that business or that update because you mentioned it, Mr. Chair, about the board recertification too. But really, the main item was just to give an update on that job center recertification.
Great. Greg, please convey our appreciation to you and your staff for all the work and getting those 2 recertifications. That's all we have on the agenda. Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, does anyone have anything, questions, comments, while we have Greg here and work together?
Greg, you might just comment, what is the date in August, and does anybody have any major problems with that date?
The date that was just voted on was Friday, August 25th, 2023 at 7:30. So that would be the next meeting of the board.
And are we good?
I think we're planning to do virtual. We haven't changed that yet, but I do think maybe at the August meeting we should look at whether or not the board is interested in looking at some kind of hybrid format, whether or not we meet in person 2 meetings a year, or whether or not we keep the virtual meetings going. But yes, we're planning on it being virtual right now.
Great, thanks. That's all I got.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
It's always more complicated than that, but the bottom line is, without the leadership of this board, this job center does not exist.
you, Mr. Director. A motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved, John Bowman.
Seconded, Lee Metcalf.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much for making time for this special meeting. Appreciate you. Meeting
you.
adjourned.
Take care.
Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Take care.